Welcome, everyone, to our deep dive today. We're going to be looking at something really quite fascinating. We're going to be taking a close look at Stanislaw Wyspianski's play, Wesele, a work that's not just a play, but really a cultural landmark in Poland.
It's true. Wesele isn't just a piece of literature. I mean, it's woven into the fabric of Polish identity. And, it premiered in 1901 and immediately sparked all these passionate debates and discussions. And, that impact continues even today.
Wow, that's incredible. So what is it about Wesele that makes it so powerful? What makes it so enduring? And what is the story at the heart of it all?
Well, at its core, Wesele is set during a wedding celebration. It's in the Polish countryside, right at the turn of the 20th century. So picture this. A peasant's cottage, just filled with the lively energy of this wedding. You've got music, dancing, celebration. But, Wyspianski, he kind of paints a picture of something more profound kind of unfolding beneath the surface.
Okay, so you've got this festive wedding scene. What's going on beneath the surface? What makes it more than just a wedding?
Well, you have to remember the historical context. In 1900, Poland as a nation didn't exist. It had been partitioned and absorbed by neighboring empires. And this yearning for independence, for a unified Poland, that really permeates the entire play. And the cottage itself becomes a microcosm of Polish society at the time with, this diverse cast of characters.
So tell me more about these characters. Who were some of the key players in this wedding?
Well, you have peasants and intellectuals, historical figures from Poland's past, and even these fantastical beings like ghosts and spirits.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Each character represents a different facet of Polish society or its history. For example, there's the poet, an idealistic figure, really. He represents the intellectuals of the time, grappling with their role in a society striving for independence. And then you have the journalist, who is maybe a bit more cynical, a bit more pragmatic, and embodies a different aspect of the intelligentsia.
It's interesting. So it's almost as if Wyspianski is staging a symbolic debate about the future of Poland, but he's using these characters to do so.
Yeah.
What about the ghosts? They don't seem like they would be typical wedding guests.
No, they're not there just for spooky effect or anything. They represent figures from Poland's past, and they're coming back to kind of haunt the present. Their presence, it underlines this weight of history, these unresolved issues that continue to influence Polish identity.
Wow. It's fascinating how Wyspianski weaves together all these different elements, this real-world setting with these fantastical elements, and you've got these historical figures mixed with these contemporary characters. It sounds like he's creating this very complex tapestry of Polish identity. Mm-hmm. What about the setting itself? You mentioned this peasant cottage. Does that hold any particular significance?
Yeah, the setting's incredibly important. The cottage becomes a symbolic space, a microcosm of Polish society with all of its internal conflicts, all of its divisions. Wyspianski uses very vivid imagery. He contrasts the vibrant, lively atmosphere of the wedding with this looming darkness outside. It's almost like a storm is brewing, both literally and figuratively.
That contrast is striking. It suggests that while there is this celebration and hope, there are these underlying tensions and anxieties. You mentioned that each character represents different segments of Polish society. Are there any specific conflicts that stand out? Any clashes that really highlight these tensions that you're talking about?
Definitely. One of the central conflicts is about this clash between tradition and modernity. Poland at the turn of the century was undergoing rapid social and cultural change. And the play explores these anxieties and these aspirations that arose from this tension between clinging to the past and embracing the future.
It's fascinating how Wyspianski used a wedding, this traditional and celebratory event, to explore all these complex issues. Did he use any other methods, any other literary devices that contributed to the play's impact?
Well, symbolism is key in Wesele. For instance, dancing is a recurring motif throughout the play. On the surface, it embodies joy and celebration, right? But beneath that, it represents this desperate attempt to escape reality, almost like a forced gaiety masking these deeper anxieties.
That's a very interesting interpretation.
Yeah.
And it really does speak to the idea that Wesele is a play that has these layers of meaning. It's not just about a wedding. It's about something so much deeper. What other symbols does he use? What other symbols does Wyspianski use to convey these deeper meanings?
Well, the peacock feathers worn by the wedding guests are another powerful symbol. They represent vanity and this kind of superficial connection to Polish heritage, this clinging to outward symbols of national pride without understanding the true sacrifices required for independence.
That's a very powerful image, those feathers representing this hollow patriotism. It seems like Wyspianski wasn't pulling any punches. It seems like He was really forcing the audience to confront some uncomfortable truths about Polish society at the time. Did the audience react to this?
Oh, yeah. The audience reaction was immediate and intense. People were blown away by its boldness. I mean, some were offended, some were inspired, but everyone was talking about it. This wasn't just a play, it was a mirror held up to Polish society, forcing people to confront its weaknesses, its aspirations, everything.
It sounds like Wyspianski achieved what every great playwright hopes for, to provoke, to challenge, to spark a conversation. What were some of the conversations that Wesele ignited?
Oh, it touched on everything. The struggle for Polish independence, the role of artists and intellectuals in shaping national consciousness. It delved into this clash between tradition and modernity, the power of myth and memory in shaping national identity. I mean, it really sparked a soul-searching moment for Poland.
Yeah, it was a pivotal moment in Polish cultural history. I mean, just imagine a play causing such a stir that it becomes a national conversation. It's fascinating how art can have that power.
It really is. And you know what's remarkable is that Wesele continues to resonate with Polish audiences today, even over a century later. So what do you think accounts for its enduring relevance?
Well, I think several things contribute to that. Firstly, the themes that Wyspianski explored, like national identity, the pull of the past, and that clash between tradition and modernity, they're universal. They're timeless. Every society grapples with these questions.
That's true, but the play is also deeply rooted in Polish history, in Polish folklore. So wouldn't that be a barrier for audiences who aren't familiar with that specific context? Well, that's where skillful productions and translations really come into play. A good director, they can emphasize those universal elements while still respecting that historical and cultural context. And even without this deep understanding of Polish history, the raw emotions, that powerful symbolism, that sheer poetry of the language, those transcend any specific time or place.
You've mentioned the language a couple of times now.
Yeah.
What makes it so unique? What makes the language so impactful?
Well, Wyspianski was a master of language. He didn't just write dialogue. He crafted an atmosphere, a world that you, as the reader or the audience member, get completely immersed in. He blends realism with symbolism and creates this very unique style that just draws you in.
Do you have a favorite scene or a quote that exemplifies that?
Oh, there are so many. But one that always stays with me is when the poet compares himself to a crane. He says, "I am a free crane. I fly as I wish. I build my nest of roses." It's such a beautiful image, full of yearning for artistic freedom and transcendence, but it also contrasts sharply with his actual situation, the sense of being trapped by societal expectations.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of what we're talking about. He uses such poetic language to highlight this internal struggle of the artist, the desire for freedom, but clashing with the constraints of reality. And it seems like this theme of entrapment runs through a lot of the characters. We've talked about the ghosts representing the past, haunting the present. Do you think that sense of being burdened by history also applies to the living characters?
Absolutely. Almost every character in Wesele is wrestling with these larger forces,
Oh.
History, societal expectations, the weight of tradition. They're all trying to make sense of their place in a world that's rapidly changing around them.
It's like they're all trapped in this metaphorical cottage, just as Poland was trapped within the borders of those empires. And it seems like Wyspianski is urging his audience, then and now, to confront those constraints.
Yeah.
How has Wesele been received in contemporary Poland? Is it viewed as a historical artifact, or is it viewed as something more?
Oh, it's definitely not a relic. Wesele is performed regularly all over Poland, and it still sparks debate and discussion. It's become part of the national consciousness, a way for Poles to connect with their history, their culture, and to really grapple with their national identity.
You mentioned that it sparks debate. Does that mean that there are different interpretations of Wesele today? How do modern audiences engage with it?
Well, it's not just confined to the stage. You'll find quotes from the play popping up everywhere. You'll find them in art, in music, in literature, even in everyday conversations. It's woven into the fabric of Polish culture. Yeah. And as for interpretations, well, every generation kind of brings its own perspective, its own understanding of the world to the play.
So, while rooted in a specific historical moment, it also has this timeless quality to it. It speaks to these universal struggles, these questions that we continue to grapple with as human beings. How do you see the play being reinterpreted in light of the challenges Poland faces today?
That's an interesting question. Poland now is an independent nation, and they're facing different challenges than it did a century ago. But the questions that the play raises about national identity, belonging, responsibility, those are still incredibly relevant, especially in today's world where national identities are constantly being questioned, redefined. by globalization, migration, technology, you name it.
And, Wesele provides a framework for exploring those very questions, right? It challenges us to think critically about what it means to belong to a nation, to belong to a culture, to belong to a community.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is that Wyspianski doesn't offer any easy answers. He presents these complex issues, these conflicting viewpoints, and really leaves it to the audience to grapple with them. And that's what I think makes Wesele such a powerful and enduring piece of art. It forces you to think, to engage, and to question your own assumptions.
It's not just a play, it's this ongoing dialogue, this provocation that continues to resonate across generations.
Precisely. It reminds me of something I once heard a theater critic say about Wesele. He said, it's not a play you watch, it's a play you experience. And that experience, that emotional and intellectual engagement, that's what makes it so impactful.
You've mentioned the blend of realism and fantasy, the use of symbolism, the poetic language. Are there any other aspects of the play's form, of its structure, that contribute to its power?
Well, Wyspianski was a true innovator. He was a pioneer of Polish modernism, and he experimented with theatrical conventions, really pushing the boundaries of what a play could be. For example, the way he seamlessly blends realistic dialogue and scenes with these moments of surrealism, where, ghosts appear or characters break into these symbolic dances. It creates this captivating tension between the tangible and the intangible.
That makes a lot of sense. By juxtaposing the everyday with the extraordinary, he's highlighting those hidden layers of meaning, suggesting that reality is never quite as straightforward as it seems. He's prompting us to dig deeper, to question our perceptions.
Exactly. And his structural choices also enhance this effect. He doesn't shy away from these abrupt shifts in tone or perspective, kind of mirroring this fragmented reality of Poland at the time. He uses these shifts to jolt the audience, to keep them engaged, to prevent them from settling into this comfortable narrative.
It sounds like Wyspianski was not only a master storyteller, but also a brilliant theatrical innovator.
Absolutely. And, his innovations continue to influence Polish theater today. I mean, many contemporary playwrights draw inspiration from his use of symbolism, his blending of genres, his willingness to experiment with form and structure.
I'm curious about how Polish audiences today might interpret the play differently than those who saw it back in 1901. Obviously, the historical context has shifted dramatically.
Yeah.
What aspects of Wesel do you think resonate most strongly with modern audiences?
Yeah, you're right. The context has changed. Poland is now an independent nation, and those anxieties about national identity might be different. But the core themes of Wesel remain relevant. The search for belonging, that tension between tradition and progress, the struggle to define one's place in a rapidly changing world. These are all universal human experiences that transcend any specific time or place.
And those experiences are perhaps even more relevant now in a globalized world, where technology and migration are constantly challenging our notions of identity and belonging.
Exactly. In today's world where people are increasingly mobile and connected across borders, the questions that Wesel raises about national identity, cultural heritage, and individual responsibility, I think they feel even more urgent.
You've said that Wesel is a play that's constantly evolving, always being reinterpreted. What are some of the ways in which contemporary productions have reimagined or reinterpreted the play?
Oh, there have been some truly fascinating interpretations. Some directors have chosen to emphasize the play's political themes, focusing on the struggle for independence or the clash between different ideologies. Others have highlighted the psychological aspects of the play, exploring the characters' inner conflicts and their struggles with identity and disillusionment.
That's fascinating. It's fascinating how a single play can accommodate such a diverse range of interpretations. It speaks to the richness and complexity of the work.
Yeah, and it also reflects the fact that Wesel isn't this static artifact. It's a living, breathing work of art that continues to evolve along with the society that engages with it. Each generation finds new meanings, new connections, new ways to relate to the play's themes and characters.
We've talked about the characters, the symbolism, the language, the historical context. But what about the overall message of Wesel? If you had to distill it down to a single takeaway, what would you say is the essence of this play?
That's a challenging question because Wesel is a play that resists easy answers. It's more about asking questions than providing solutions. But if I had to identify a core message, I'd say it's a call to action. It's this urging for self-reflection, both on an individual and a societal level.
A call to action? In what sense?
Well, Wyspianski is challenging his audience then and now to confront these difficult truths about themselves and about their society. He's urging them to break free from the constraints of the past, to embrace change, to actively shape their own destinies.
That's a powerful message. And it makes me think about the play's title, Wesele, which means the wedding in Polish. How does the concept of a wedding tie into this call to action?
That's a really interesting point. On the surface, a wedding is a celebration of unity, right? This joining together of two individuals, of two families. But in Wesele, the wedding also becomes a symbol of potential, of a new beginning, of a chance to forge this new path for Poland.
It's almost as if Wyspianski is saying, this is a time for celebration, but it's also a time for critical reflection and for decisive action. We can't simply cling to the past. We have to build a new future.
Exactly. The wedding becomes this metaphor for the potential for change, for renewal, for this rebirth of the Polish nation. But it's also a warning that this potential can only be realized through this conscious effort and a willingness to confront uncomfortable realities.
It sounds like Wesele is more than just a play. It's almost a manifesto, a rallying cry for a nation that's struggling to define its identity and its future.
That's a great way to put it. It's a play that challenges, that provokes, and ultimately inspires its audience to engage in this deeper dialogue about who they are and what they want their nation to become.
You've given us so much to think about. I'm feeling so much more informed, but I'm also feeling a bit overwhelmed by the depth and the complexity of this play.
It is a lot to take in, but that's the beauty of it, right? It's a work that you can revisit throughout your life. And each time you'll find something new, something that speaks to your current experiences and your current understanding of the world.
Yeah, it really is. It's one of those works that kind of stays with you and prompts you to keep thinking and keep questioning. And it's interesting how Wyspianski chose a wedding, this seemingly simple and joyful event, to explore this, profound exploration of Polish identity, history, and culture.
Yeah, the choice of setting is brilliant. I mean, weddings, they bring together diverse families, diverse backgrounds. It's like a microcosm of society itself with all of its complexities, all of its contradictions. And by setting the play during this moment of unity and celebration, Wyspianski is able to highlight these underlying tensions and these divisions that exist beneath the surface of Polish society.
Yeah, it's like he's saying, look, we can gather to celebrate, but let's not shy away from the difficult conversations, the challenges that we face as a nation.
Exactly. And he does it with this, masterful blend of humor and tragedy, realism and fantasy. It's not just this dry historical lecture. It's a vibrant, almost surreal experience that draws you in and makes you think.
I think that's what makes it so powerful. It's not just telling you what to think. It's allowing you to feel it, to experience it on this emotional level. And you've mentioned this idea of Wesele as a cultural touchstone several times. Can you elaborate on that a bit? What does that actually mean? What does that mean in the context of Polish culture?
Well, think of it as this shared point of reference, something that, Poles from all walks of life can connect to, even if they interpret it differently, It's a way to engage with these fundamental questions about what it means to be Polish, what values define the nation, what hopes and anxieties shape its future.
So it's not just a play that people see and then forget about,
Right.
It's something that they actively engage with, something that they reference in their own lives, their own conversations.
Absolutely. It's like this cultural shorthand.
Oh,
You can mention a character or a quote from Wesele, and it immediately evokes a whole set of ideas, emotions, associations.
Do you have any specific examples of that? Of how Wesele kind of permeates Polish culture beyond the stage?
Oh, there are countless examples. It's been adapted into films, operas, even a ballet. You'll find references to it in paintings, in music, in literature. It's even made its way into political speeches. I mean, it's become so ingrained in the national consciousness that it kind of pops up in the most unexpected places.
Wow. That's remarkable. It really speaks to the enduring power of this play, right? How it's become this shared language, this way for Poles to talk about these big, complex ideas. And it's not just about the past either. You've mentioned how Wesele provides this framework for understanding contemporary issues as well.
Yeah, even though it was written over a century ago, it still offers a lens for understanding the challenges that Poland faces today. I mean, the themes of social division, the role of intellectuals, the search for this unified national identity in this rapidly changing world. I mean, these are all things that resonate deeply with modern audiences.
So in a way, Wesele is a play that is always evolving. It's always being reinterpreted as the context changes.
Precisely. Each generation brings its own baggage, its own hopes, its own fears to the play, and that's what keeps it alive, right? It's a living, breathing work of art that continues to spark new conversations and inspire new interpretations.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive. I feel like I've gained a much deeper understanding of Wesele, its impact, and its enduring relevance. What would you say are the key takeaways for our listener who might be inspired to explore Wesel for themselves?
I think the most important takeaway is to appreciate the sheer artistry of the play. I mean, the language, the symbolism, the way Wyspianski blends realism and fantasy, it's all incredibly captivating.
And to remember that historical context as well, right? Poland's yearning for independence and those anxieties of societal change, all of that kind of infuses the play with this, much deeper meaning.
Exactly. But also think about how those themes resonate with you on a personal level. What does it mean to belong? What is the responsibility of the artist? How do we balance tradition and progress? I mean, these are all universal questions that Wiesel poses. But it doesn't offer any easy answers, right? It invites you to join the conversation, to grapple with these ideas and come to your own conclusions.
It sounds like Wesel is more than just a play. It's an invitation. It's an invitation to engage in a dialogue about the things that matter most: identity, belonging, the human condition. And for you, our listener, as you embark on your own exploration of Wesel, consider this. How might this play, written in a time of national crisis and societal change, speak to our own anxieties and our own aspirations in the 21st century? What timeless truths about human nature and the search for identity does it reveal? We hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and provided you with a new appreciation for the power of art to reflect, to challenge, and to inspire.